Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi everyone. My name is Ammar Siddiqui on behalf of YM and ICNA, Acknowledged Entities, including ICNA Sisters, YMS, YM Brothers, MCNA, YMJ, ICNA Relief, Helping Hand, Y Islam Gain Peace, and our guests, CAIR. I'd like to introduce and welcome everyone here. Jazakallah khair for joining us on this important stream. Before we begin, as we do with everything, we want to begin in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we'll have Hafiz Saad start with the Quran recitation, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قالوا بنوا له بنيانا فألقوه في الجحيم فأرادوا به كيدا فجعلناهم الأسفلين وقال إني ذاهب إلى ربي سيهدين رب هب لي من الصالحين فبشرناه بغلام حليم فلما بلغ معه السعي قال يا بني إني أرى في المنام أني أذبحك فانظر ماذا ترى قال يا أبت افعل ما تؤمر ستجدني إن شاء الله من الصابرين فلما أسلما وتله للجبين وناديناه أن يا إبراهيم قد صدقت الرؤيا إنا كذلك نجزي المحسنين إن هذا لهو البلاء المبين وفديناه بذبح عظيم وتركنا عليه في الآخرين سلام على إبراهيم كذلك نجزي المحسنين إنه من عبادنا المؤمنين وبشرناه بإسحاق نبيا من الصالحين وباركنا عليه وعلى إسحاق ومن ذريتهما محسن وظالم لنفسه مبين صدق الله العلي العظيم. Inshallah, now I'll quickly go ahead and do a quick translation of the ayahs that we just recited. So we recited Surah Al-Saffat from ayah 97 to 113. So from one ayah 97, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, he says, they said to one another, build him a furnace and cast him into the blazing fire. And following it, he says, and they sought to harm him, but we made them inferior. So he's talking about Ibrahim alayhi salam. He says, he later said, I am leaving in obedience to my Lord. He will guide me. He said, Rabbi habli min as-salihin, my Lord blessed me with righteous offsprings. So we gave him good news of a forbearing son. And then when the boy reached the age to work with him, so talking about Ismail alayhi salam, Ibrahim alayhi salam said, "O my dear son, I have seen in a dream that I must sacrifice you. So tell me what you think." And he replied, "O my dear father, do as you are commanded. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willing, you will find me steadfast." And then when they submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will, and Ibrahim alayhi salam laid him on the side of his forehead to sacrifice, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنَادَيْنَاهُمَا أَيْ يَا Ibrahim. We called out to him, O Ibrahim. Yeah, you have already fulfilled the vision, and indeed this is how we reward the good doers. He said that was truly a revealing test. It was a test of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we ransomed his son with a great sacrifice. And he will bless Ibrahim alayhi salam with honorable mention among later generations. And it says, Salamun ala Ibrahim. It says, peace be upon Ibrahim. Peace be upon Ibrahim alayhi salam. He says, كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. This is how we reward the good doers. And he was truly one of our faithful servants. And in the last two verses, he says, we later gave him the good news of Isaac, right? The prophet and one of the righteousness. And the last ayah, he says, we blessed him and we blessed Ishaq, we blessed Isaac as well. And some of their descendants did good, while others have clearly wronged themselves. So Jazakallah khairan, that was a brief summary of the ayahs that were recited. And I'll pass it back to Omar, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Hafiz Saad, from Atlanta. And those ayahs currently are very, applicable, as are all our ayahs, but especially these in our current climate. And that actually transitions us directly to our topic, which is, as you guys on the flyer, unconstitutional crackdowns, protecting your green cards, visas, and free speech rights. I'm sure most of you guys have been keeping up with media and political climate, what's been going on in the White House and, abroad as well. And we know that there's been a lot of, crackdown on free speech and other issues. And so we have actually CAIR is here as a guest speakers with their attorneys and policy experts, along with ICNA's own experts. And we want to go over these questions, these pressing questions. Just 2 weeks ago, I believe we had our Muslim Advocacy Day, and a lot of people here were there as well. And we had a lot of these issues that we brought up to our local representatives. And so we want to dive in a little deeper to make sure our communities, whether it's for yourselves here or for your families or for your own, the communities that you represent, we want to make sure that we're very educated on how we go about. We know activism is something that's not going to stop. It's a core, concept of Islam. And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kunu qawwamina bil qisti shuhada'a lillah, that we are commanded to stand for justice. So that's going to happen regardless. But the question now is, how can we do so in the best manner, making sure we're educated, and we protect ourselves and our families and our communities. With that, without any further ado, we have a couple speakers that are going to be on our panel. We're just going to be asking questions. They're going to take the questions. If any of the speakers want to pitch in, they're free to do so as well. Most of you guys know, but we have our 4 speakers here. First one is going to be Brother Robert McCaw, who is the CAIR Government Director. We also have Brother Gadi Abbas, who is also a licensed in CAIR, and he is the Deputy Litigation Director. We have Sister Ojumine Nasiri, who is also an attorney from CAIR National Board member. And then lastly, we have our esteemed Imam Khalid Griggs, ICNA CSJ Executive Director. I know Brother Robert is infamous because of the name mix-up at MAD. I know Imam Khalid was there as well. I'm not sure if Sister Spojumi and Brother Gadir, were you guys at MAD?
I'm sorry, we were where?
MAD, Muslim Advocacy Day.
Yes.
I know everyone's very familiar with you, and we saw Imam Khalid there as well. I'm not sure if our other speakers were there as well, but it's great to have you all, alhamdulillah. We'll jump right into it. So we have a couple of questions, and we can start with Brother Robert first. The highlight of a lot of these issues comes down to the issue of free speech. Things are being said to support, people, here abroad, we're exercising our free speech to stand up for justice. Yet we see that there's a lot of pushback on that, and so some people are now afraid to speak the truth. And so what we want to ask you to start with is the question: what are the current threats that we're facing with free speech, including immigration rights, under the current government?
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I just have like 5 quick slides I'd like to show while I talk about it, just to point stuff out.
Go for it, yeah.
Always overly prepared, so I'm just gonna try to present if I'm able to. Share screen. Yeah, why not? Hold on, window. There we go. We're gonna share it all. That never gets you in trouble. Hold on. Just the entire screen. There we go. All right. So there are a lot of, number one, again, my name is Robert McCom, the National Government Affairs Director for the Council on American Islamic Relations. A lot of you might see me at the recent Muslim Advocacy Day on Capitol Hill. I'm the steering committee chair for USCMO, but I also play the double duty as CAIR's director. So there are a lot of threats to our free speech right now. And on day one of the Trump administration, President Trump issued several executive orders, and his agencies followed suit in issuing a number of department directives and memos. And the biggest one right now is he issued this executive order called Protecting the United States from Foreign Terrorists and Other National Security and Public Threats. And this has two effects. Number one, it impacts anyone traveling to the United States. It's going to screen them against, what the administration identifies as hostile ideologies. And it will also now start returning back to extreme vetting measures where even American citizens quite frequently, including even CAIR staff, are being asked what's their opinions of the president, the United States, what is their opinion on, October 7th and the conflict afterwards, what are our views of Israel, what's our view of Yemen, all these questions are being asked at the border. In addition to that, there's a looming Muslim ban. Some people think it's already taken place. It hasn't, but there was a deadline for March 21st for all our national security agencies to provide a report of suggested countries. And so we're just kind of waiting for that to drop. But while that's dropping, like I said, they're already ideologically screening potential travelers to the United States and also Americans at the border. And they are screening social media travelers. And they are asking even Americans for their electronic devices. And they're trying to detect anti-American or threatening viewpoints, which are very vaguely defined. The Department of Justice also has launched a task force to look at October 7th and, the sentiment of student protesters. And in addition to that, the administration passed an executive order on combating anti-Semitism. And like that first executive order, in this executive order, it's a bait and switch. So in all these executive orders, in some way, they're saying they're going to hold travelers to the United States, visa holders, workers, to material support terrorism standards, where, of course, it's illegal to provide material support to terrorist groups overseas. But then linguistically, they're calling anti-genocide protests pro-Hamas rallies, which obviously is not the case. But they haven't actually applied any of these executive orders when they detain students. And so at universities across the country, we are now seeing the impact and the threat of ICE going after prominent students, but they're always foreign students here on visa or green card holders, non-US citizens, who have spoken out against Israel's illegal genocide in Gaza. And so we keep on seeing them go after, but they're actually not using the executive orders. They're using very obscure Cold War era immigration laws that would say that the Secretary of State could technically revoke someone's visa, or they're trying to go after green card holders if they are impacting the U.S. foreign policy, which actually has nothing to do with those executive orders. And you'll notice they're not going after any American students or protesters because unquestionably our First Amendment rights are protected. And so with that, I would say that right now there is this larger looming threat the administration is trying to impose on all student protesters and all advocacy groups that are challenging U.S. foreign policy. But there are considerable constraints on the administration to actually arrest, American citizens. And so they're going after easier and more susceptible targets like foreign students or workers here on visa. And with that, DHS has also downgraded their prohibitions on going to sensitive locations like schools, houses of worship, or hospitals. And so we have seen some of these arrests now take place at schools. Sorry, that's a little bit of a power rant.
No, that's fine. I think that gave a lot of information at once. I think right away the concerns that are raised are like, okay, it seems a little bit risky to like go into activism. So the question to you guys, especially the attorneys here, what do you guys suggest that students and people, whether they're citizens and whether they're green card holders, maybe there's different answers for that. But should people get involved in activism, whether it's, you know, quiet, online, or outside? And if so, what kind of precautions should we be taking? I'll give that to Brother Goodyear and Sister Splojumi.
Splojumi, do you want to go first? Why don't you kick us off?
Thank you, Brother Goodyear. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I think always, not just in this heightened environment that we're living in where everybody's under the lens. When you're going to protest, there are drones, there are mechanisms. I know my daughter is at Columbia and they said they're using all kinds of stuff where they're monitoring students' eye or they're checking them. So in this heightened atmosphere, more so now than ever, but even before as an immigration attorney practicing for 17 years, I've always cautioned non-US citizens, whether naturalized, other than being a citizen where you have a safety of voicing and doing your First Amendment rights. Although under Constitution, everyone has the rights, but there's a little bit more risk in terms of being a lawful permanent resident. If you are in a protest and you're somewhere, protect yourself by not joining the loud demonstrations where there's vandalism, trespassing. If you're going to be doing protests in a campus or you're leading them, know that, you know, follow the protocols of the place, time and manner that you're doing them. As a precaution, as an attorney, immigration attorney in particular, if you are arrested for vandalism or trespassing or something of that sort, could potentially impact your citizenship application. So with caution, I would say if you can avoid and figure out different ways of protesting and in solidarity and support of the cause, find other means than going to actual protests that may potentially do more harm to you than help the whole cause. So that's where I would leave it to Brother Goodyear to take over.
Yeah, and I think it's a time for citizens to, step up. You have less at risk as a citizen than you do as a green card holder or some other or having some other status. And so, the best protection for free speech that we have is a lot of people saying things, so it's hard. It's easy if it's just one person saying it, or it's two people saying it, or it's a small little group of people saying it. It's very hard. It's very difficult when it's hundreds of thousands or millions of people saying it. And so I think that's what exactly you're seeing on campus now, where college students are reluctant to stop talking about Palestine. They're finding ways to continue to raise the issue on campus and otherwise, and everybody's trying to get them to stop. I would say when right after October 7th, you saw these private efforts to shame students with like the electronic billboards outside of some people's houses at times, parading around various college campuses. These were, some of them were, backed by extremely wealthy folks that were telling college students all across the country right after October 7th in 2023 that if they kept on talking about Palestine, they weren't going to get a job. They weren't going to get this. They weren't going to even finish school. And then, that's October and November. Then you just like 6 months later, right? In April 2024, you have the most significant campus protests since at least the 70s. These protests reverberated around the globe. Remember what was going on, at the time that these protests started to launch. This was when Iran and Israel were launching missiles, and a lot of the attention stopped being on what was going on in Gaza in April 2024. And it was students. It was students on campus that brought this to the world's attention, front and center. And let me say this: that it wasn't just U.S. citizens that helped organize that energy and do it. It was a lot of green card holders, Mahmoud Khalil among them, among others. And so, they've done enough. I think for now, they've contributed substantially and enough. Palestine does not benefit if you get deported. It just that's the reality. Like this is a long game. It's not something that is going to get resolved in one day or one action. And so, you do have the right to say things that offend people. You have the right to speak about Palestine. You have the right to, depending on the context, of course, and that just means that you have to know what the situation is. If you're a private college student, you just don't have as many rights for free speech as you do if you're at a public college student. If you're a doctor or nurse, you work in a lab at a public hospital, the county hospital, you have all sorts of protections to be able to say things that you want to say in your off hours. As a private employee of a private hospital, you don't have those rights, and they could fire you because they don't like the sports team that you like. Yeah.
Got it. Is there anything else, Brother Robert, Sister Spojmi, you guys want to add to
that? Just that, we just saw an influx of Muslims a week ago come to the National Muslim Advocacy on Capitol Hill. You had people from the community speaking to their elected officials, and no matter how you curb or curtail your speech, you should not be afraid, especially as an American citizen, to engage with your congressional offices, to call them, to email them. This is your First Amendment protected right to assemble, speak freely, and to petition the government your grievances. Hopefully, sometimes helpful suggestions as well. But there is right now a lot of pressure on community members, and I just think this is the moment where those with U.S. citizenship in our community just take a step forward, and those who are here studying. I heard Gadir say this on another call. We need you here. We want you here. We want you to be safe. And focus on your studies or your work, and let us make sure that your rights are being upheld and protected.
I would just echo both brothers and just add that particularly if you're an international student, F1 student, your rights are limited. We know that over 6,000, if not more, student visas were revoked without notice, and many of them are not activism in this arena or even Muslim, but particularly the ones that are detained are Muslim, that were Muslim. So alhamdulillah, we've had the sister that was from Turkey released last week because she wrote an op-ed. So the times, in particular for F1 students, be cautious with the activism that you're doing, because the risks are high and it's limited in what can be done, because they can revoke with very little. And that is the desperation of this administration. The tactics that they're taking, they're going after some of the most prominent leaders in this movement because they want to silence the voices, and that's when U.S. citizens should step up. But then in and of itself, as an attorney, I couldn't say if you're a U.S. citizen, there's no personal and employment risks. So you really have to assess for yourself whether you want to take that risk. But immigration-wise, you are protected.
Got it. So it seems like you guys are saying that with the non-citizens, there's a little bit more risk, and there's a lot of other ways to promote justice without being as outside and out loud with it. But there is a lot of ways to still keep that justice going. But as you guys echoed, the citizens, it's where we really need to step up, and there's very little risk in terms of us, being, having those consequences that other people might have, like how you mentioned Mahmoud Khalil or our sister Ramesa. And so for the citizens, there's a lot less risk. With that, Imam Khalid, I'd like to ask you a question.
I apologize. I would add that if you're a naturalized citizen, the department has the ability to do denaturalization. So when you're born here versus naturalized citizen, there's potentially a risk for denaturalization. Can go back and look at it. So again, think through it and speak with an attorney or see how it is. But again, the citizens have more rights than everybody else, but be cautious with naturalized citizens.
I wouldn't want to put people into a scare, but I keep on hearing rumors that the administration at some point will announce that they're going to start looking at all naturalized citizens to make sure their applications were in order. So, doing things, drawing unwanted attention can affect you, or if you have a primary family member that you want to keep safe as well. And then I'm sure later on we'll talk about precautions we can take while traveling or elsewhere.
We'll get to that in a second. But on the note of taking risks, I know there's a balance that has to be there where we're not, doing anything dumb to get ourselves in trouble, but also we're not so fearful that we're not doing anything. Imam Khalid, I know you've been on the front line of activism for decades now, alhamdulillah. I want to ask you, I mean, a lot of people almost have that paralysis of, we don't want to do anything because we don't want to get in trouble. Even a couple of days ago, I was flying and I have a habit of wearing the kufiya, and my mom's like, you shouldn't wear the kufiya to the airport. And so this concern that's very valid of, fear of, something happening, even though we're not doing anything wrong. How do we address that fear? What does the Quran Sunnah tell us and teach us? And from your experience, how do we address, not being so paralyzed by those kind of risks and fear, and understanding that there's certain things we have to do no matter what?
Yeah, very good question. I want to address the second part of your question first. And that is when we look at the history of change, whether we're talking about Islamic movement led by the Prophet Muhammad SAW, whether we're talking about the civil rights movement, the labor movement in this country, we have to step up. We have to take a stand for justice. We are divinely commanded to take this stand, whether it's against ourselves, and we know the rest of the ayah. And also Allah challenges us in the Quran as to ask us, why are we not doing anything? Like in Surah Nisa, maybe ayah 75, I think it is, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala challenges the Muslims, challenges the believers. You see what's going on. I'm paraphrasing, of course. You see what's going on with men, women, and children, and the kind of oppression that's plaguing the land. So we are divinely commanded to take a stand. We have to be careful. We don't want to be reckless. But in America, and especially in the present climate, I don't know if there's any safeguard, whether we were born in this country, whether we're naturalized, whether we've just immigrated to the country. Because just a few days ago, the mayor of the largest city in New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey, Ross Barakat, was actually attempted to be manhandled by ICE, and was actually arrested and detained for a number of hours. He's also a governor candidate for the state of New Jersey. And I think it's symptomatic of the kind of overzealous attempt to scare people, to go after the leadership of those who are taking stands, whether in the Muslim community, whether they're students, whether they're activists, whether they're the heads of organizations. We in a climate today where all of us should feel and know that no one is actually safe from this kind of excessive enforcement of sometimes imaginary laws and violations of laws. So fear cannot be our governing factor. There should never be a point when we as Muslims are afraid, as has been mentioned by the attorneys. If we don't feel we need to be on the front line of a demonstration, then find another way to express our outrage, our displeasure, our not going along with the injustices that are happening around us. So, in short, we're divinely mandated to take a stand. And I just want to say one other word too, and that is that our youth, not that when we are young, we just don't care, but youth should not waste their youth, their young age, being so overly conscious that they're fearful of doing anything. As you said, it's kind of a paralysis that can set over any and all of us. But again, we are divinely mandated. We are the leaders, should be the leaders of these movements, not necessarily the practical head, but we as Muslims have to be in the forefront and need to be aligned with those whose principles agree with that of the Muslims.
100%. I think it's important, especially you mentioned for youth as well. Having that balance between sometimes we act irrationally, and other times we get paralyzed by that. But I think having that balance is very important. Moving on, and if you're not speaking, you can just mute the mic just so there's not some background echo. But we'll move on back to Brother Gadir, and you guys can all pitch in as well. The point Brother Robert mentioned about traveling. This has been a huge concern. I know WhatsApp is filled with forwarded messages, and we want to know what really is the case. What precautions should we be taking, and what rights do we have in traveling? And God forbid we're pulled over for any questions, devices, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think the most common thing that we're seeing is people's electronic devices being searched at the border, people being pulled out of the normal screening line, sent to like a secondary additional screening, and being asked questions. So I'm going to talk both about the devices and the questions that sometimes folks get. So one, the best way to not have your electronic devices searched is, get this, not travel with your electronic devices. Okay. I know that's a big ask. But in certain situations, you really have to do it. If you're one of those people who, let's say you have a really sensitive kind of job, you are searched every single time you cross the land border, you need to take special measures. So the best case is like, I'm going to travel without electronics. Almost no one does that. Okay. That's why we have other options too. Okay. So you're like, okay, I need to travel with a device. I'm not willing to go without. So what do you do? I think our number one recommendation is get like a burner phone, a phone that you just use for traveling. Okay. So for example, you get an Android device, a cheap Android device. You don't put anything on it. You travel overseas. When you go overseas, you put the SIM card in. You use it. The only thing you download there is the apps that you have to use. You're not putting your whole life on the phone. And instead, and then so now you're ready to come back. Some people will leave the burner phone overseas. Other people, like that's a good option. Other people will and then travel with like a factory reset device. And then the other benefit is like, let's say now, okay, but now you're traveling. Let's say you have the burner phone. So no, I need the stuff that's on it. I'm going to travel with it. What I'd suggest is, when you land, before you get off the plane, you texting your family, hey, landed, I'm about to get off the plane. You do that so that somebody has a good idea about like when, okay, they're off the plane now, or they're about to get off the plane. They should get through customs in 1 hour, 2 hours. If we don't hear from them, maybe something's going on. So you do that, then just turn off your phone. Okay. The reason you turn off your phone is because it should be password protected. Obviously your phone should be password protected. Please password protect your phone. So if you turn it off and you turn it back on, if somebody turns it back on, they're going to have to enter a password to do it. And so that's a good reason to turn it off. So, okay, so now you go into the regular screening line. They swipe your passport, beep, 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 or maybe no beeps, but you get sent to a different line and you're now in like a waiting area, waiting to be questioned. Maybe it's an hour, maybe 30 minutes goes by, maybe it's 2 hours goes by. Somebody pulls you into a smaller room. They start searching your stuff. They see your phone. They say, give me your phone. So you hand him your turned off device. He looks at it and he says, turn it on. Okay. That's fine. That's okay. If he wants you to turn on the device, that's fine. I think it's okay for you to show that it is, in fact, a working electronic device. And so if they ask you to turn it on, I would turn it on. You don't have to, but I would turn it on. If he asks you to do anything more than turn it on, don't do it. Don't do it. And let me tell you why I feel comfortable. I've kind of struggled. Should you do it? Should you not do it? I think if you're not a citizen, that maybe the calculations might be a little bit different and you should consult an immigration attorney. But if you're a citizen, Certainly this is the case. And I think even if you're not a citizen, it might be. So the reason you don't want to give the border agent access to your device, because the stuff on a typical Muslim's phone is generally going to alarm a border agent. That's just the reality. Do you have anything with Arabic writing on your phone? Anything? Any images of highly bearded men on your phone? Certainly. All these things viewed from the perspective of like a border agent who's rifling through your stuff can be the basis of a longer stop. And so he says, give me your phone. Okay. He looks at it. He's like, turn on your phone. Okay. Turned it on. Now he says, unlock your phone. This is where the first big kind of substantive decision in the interrogation that you have to make. My advice, CAIR's advice, is to say, we're not going to turn on, no, I'm not going to unlock the device. There's benefits, and I think there's advantages, disadvantages. The advantage to not unlocking your phone is that they're not going to look at your phone in front of you. That's a big, huge advantage. In my view, that outweighs all the other possible downsides to not unlocking your phone. But then he says, if you don't unlock your phone, I'm going to take your phone and we're going to search it anyways. Okay. They say that a lot of times. Or they'll say, if you don't unlock your phone, this is going to last a lot longer. Okay. I think that's the one that gets people a lot. If you don't unlock your phone, this is going to last a lot longer. I think if you're taking an international trip, you land, you just want to get through it. The idea that you would, do something to prolong your detention might not sound like a good idea after a 12-hour flight. But in my experience, I've seen, we've dealt with these issues for a decade, hundreds, if not, more than 1,000 individual instances of, I'm talking to somebody or we're reviewing facts about somebody who had their who was asked to have their electronic device unlocked or searched. In my experience, the people that get their device, willingly unlock their device, end up in a more embroiled than the people that decline. And I think the reason is if you unlock your device, they're going to look through it. Absolutely, 100%. They're going to look through your device if you unlock it, and they're going to look through it while you're just sitting right there. Okay. If you don't unlock your device, they have a big important choice to make. Are they going to complete all the bureaucratic steps it takes to seize your phone, to have your phone sent to some other department that has the technology to maybe sort of possibly unlock your phone or look at the contents of your phone separately? That's what they have to do. And a lot of times they just don't take that step, and then they just accept that they're not going to see the device and they move on. Sometimes they do take the device. And if you're traveling with a burner device, you're going to be much more willing to just give it up. You just like, you know what? This isn't even the phone that I use day to day. So I can willingly give the phone up and continue on with my life. And the other reason that I think is better is they might take the phone, but the people that will deal with it, they have no idea who you are, and they're not sitting in front of you controlling your freedom. And it's been surprising to me. We file lawsuits about these things all the time. A lot of times when we file a lawsuit about a device that was seized, so person refused to unlock it, the CBP agent seized it. Their arguments in court is, yeah, we seized it, but we didn't even try to search the phone. I mean, can you believe it? They take your phone, they send it, and they don't even try to search it. That shows like just how little they care. So that's on the devices. With regards to the questions, if they ask for about your political beliefs or your religious practices, your religious beliefs, you have to, like a red flag should go up in your head, and you should remember that we said this. You're dealing with an unprofessional border agent. Any border agent that's asking you about Trump, asking you, and they've asked this, do you pray the morning prayer at the mosque? Can you imagine what kind of what kind of mental gymnastics are involved in arriving? That's a good question to ask at the border. Who's your imam? Which mosque do you go to? Are you Sunni? Are you Shia? Those are all, if anybody's asking you those questions, you need to be really deliberate about, I'm a citizen, or I'm a green card holder. I'm entitled to enter the country because of my status, and I'd like to speak with your supervisor. I don't feel like I have to answer those questions, and I think they're inappropriate for you to ask them. We filed lawsuits about religious interrogations at the border. And so there was a questionnaire going around for years and years that ICE and CBP used to use. And the questionnaire was like, how often do you pray? How often do you pray at the mosque? Do you do the morning prayer at the mosque? There's like all these ideas like swimming around border agents' head. It's in their milieu. And so you don't know whether you're dealing with a professional one that is thoughtful, deliberate, or you're dealing with an unprofessional person that has anti-Muslim sentiments. So you should not answer questions about your political beliefs, your religious practices. It's okay to answer basic questions about like, where are you coming from? I'm coming from Turkey. What were you doing in Turkey? I was visiting family. That's fine. Purpose questions can be okay. General purpose questions can be okay. Questions about how much money you're carrying with you, those are fine because there's a rule. And I suppose you might know it better than I do. It's 10,000. Is it 10,000 or above 10,000?
It's 10,000, but you have to do it for each person. Like if you have family members traveling with you, you have to declare for each person, not as a family.
Got it. So yeah. So it's legitimate for them to ask questions about the amount of money you're traveling with. And that's just like, are you traveling with money? Yes. How much? I think a couple $100, or it's $1,000. If it's $10,000, if it's a lot of money, you should know. You should have a good sense of how much it is to know that for sure it's not $10,000. If it's $10,000, you're required to disclose it. If they ask you, for example, are you traveling with any seeds or animals or plants? That's a fine question to answer. You don't want to, I think that this is a human to human interaction. And so you don't want to act like a robot, but you also, this is not the time for you to tell them about, how beautiful Mecca is and a history of Medina. No dawah at the border. Please, brothers and sisters, no dawah at the border. You want to really be focused on protecting yourself, your family, your community. And to do that, you need to be focused on the questions that are being asked and providing brief, succinct answers to those questions, unless they run into the religious beliefs, if somebody asks you what you think about Hezbollah and Nasrallah, like, this person has no business asking you those things. If they're asking you, how do you feel about Trump, which is a question that border agents have asked, that border agent's just trying to get you in trouble. There's no right answer to that question. So you just got to take those kind of political questions as an indication of who you're dealing with. You're dealing with somebody who might be dangerous to you. Yeah.
So, Brother Gadir, how exactly would you respond to any of those leading questions or, those private questions? What would you say? I refuse to answer, or I plead the fifth? What would you say for that?
Yeah, let's say, okay, so they ask you, how often do you pray at the mosque? In response, I'd say, sir, ma'am, I don't think that's an appropriate question. And, I'm a citizen, and I'd like to, I think I'm entitled to enter the country, and I don't plan on answering the question. Please let me speak with your supervisor. Take their name, just like something diplomatic to let them know that you have some idea of what your rights are and that you're willing to assert them. That's like at the border, no one can help you. You're 100% on your own. I'm not going to let you make a call to me or spoge me. They're not going to let you like consult a friend. You got to do it yourself. And yeah, you not answer the question, get the officer's name, ask to speak with a supervisor. If they don't let you speak with the supervisor, if he doesn't give you, she doesn't give you the name, your bottom line is, I don't want to answer the question and I want to leave this room. That's your bottom line. If they don't give you the name, if they don't give you the number, if you don't speak with the supervisor, so long as they move on and eventually let you leave, that's what you're looking for.
I would just add, because I've recently traveled back from Bangladesh and I always do this, burner phone for sure. My son has a nice Android. I commandeer that. I bought it for $200. It's decent. The other thing is, if you are not going to get the Android, I would actually delete all your social media apps and email apps. You can re-download them. You know your passwords. Just delete them, because if they somehow get in your phone, they're not there anymore. It's just one step harder. Just, there's no, I know that's my extra precaution, but I really just, too many things. I don't even bring, and I work for CAIR, so I don't bring my CAIR laptop. I don't bring my CAIR cell phone. I'm not letting that going to get into the government's hands. I only travel domestically with those. But, be very considerate of what is on your devices as well.
Got it. Sister Exposure, anything?
Yes, I would just add, I echo everything that was said by Brother Gadir. I would just say that, if it wasn't mentioned, I was trying to listen to him. If you have the two-face the face recognition, take that off.
Yeah.
Have two-step authentication on your phone, because they can't take the phone back and plug it in, so make it harder for them to access, put a harder code. And then a lot of times people say, well, I don't have anything to hide, whether it's like at the airport, I'm just going to cooperate because I don't have anything to hide. You would be surprised what they make a mountain out of a piece of dust, because that's what they're trying to do. And they'll turn it into something. So if you do give it, like Brother Gadir said, you're going to create a longer time. And I think the most important thing for the audience and everybody is to know is that you have rights. And you have to, whether you're timid, you're shy, you don't want confrontation, you're going to get through. In this time, we have to step up and voice and educating the community that, no, I have rights, like the answers he was saying. So by saying I have nothing to hide, I'm going to give my phone, you're actually going to cause more issue. And that's similar to an FBI comes to your door, and in my Afghan community, people will be like, oh, I'm going to bring him in for Afghan tea and cookies. I don't have anything to hide. Well, just made it really worse. So the advice would be is to be comfortable and be prepared. And an extra precaution I would say is, there are immigration attorneys all across the country. If you really are feeling that worried, go have a consultation with an attorney, which can range $200 or something, and just tell them what your concerns are and tell you how you're well prepared. That's what I usually tell people. Or go to a nonprofit organization that serves the community and ask them questions on how to prepare. Because like Brother Gadir said, you're not going to have anyone. They don't allow attorneys, so you are representing yourself.
Got it. Does that go for everyone? So it seems like you guys are saying when it comes to questions, be as minimal as possible. Any, straightforward questions pertaining to your travel, like, oh, where are you coming from, or why you were there. You're saying those are kind of okay to answer in a vague way or in a simple way. But anything when it comes to details or whatnot, you're not, allowed, or you're not needed to respond to that. And you can simply tell them that I don't want to respond. And then when you said, as you said, to phones, avoid phones. When it comes to burner phones, actually, a question would be, are people allowed to have, WhatsApp and Facebook on these burner phones, or is the whole point of it to not have any of this stuff and just a basic messaging app?
I think you want to have as little as possible on that phone. And I think WhatsApp is, I can't tell you how many times WhatsApp comes up in border detentions. There's just a lot of stuff on WhatsApp. Muslim WhatsApps get, very freewheeling, auntie, uncle WhatsApp messages, they're edgy. Let's say that they're edgy. And so think about it, just from the perspective of just you hand a border agent, your mom's WhatsApp, and they're just, going through the memes. They're going to find something that they don't like. And so I would say, yeah, you don't want WhatsApp on your phone. If it's just social and you're traveling overseas, it's probably not worth it. And it's if you do download it onto your phone, there's going to be there's going to be digital exhaust of what you downloaded. There's going to be digital exhaust of who you've communicated with. And, there's a lot of those groups. Like, are you in WhatsApp groups that, for example, Robert, I'm sure, is in WhatsApp groups that it's just like, here's like the Muslim political leadership of America. Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe, when Robert travels, he's going to be thoughtful about, like, do I really need?
I'm leaving that phone home.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that WhatsApp is a big, like, people have not been allowed into the country because of WhatsApp, and so don't put it on your phone.
In law enforcement, if they ever get into your phone and they screen you, they're not looking just for your posts; they're looking for anything on your feed, and so it becomes you become subject to other people's thoughts and posts, or someone you're not even friends with. They're sharing someone you don't even know, but that's enough to get you in trouble and looked at. So it's just not worth it.
The only other thing I would add is sometimes they have asked some of my clients, why do you have a burner phone? I don't know what the other brothers would say. I would just say international travel is risky. I really don't want to carry a phone. I prefer to carry a burner. If it gets lost or stolen, I don't have to worry about it. That's the answer I've been giving.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah.
That's a legit answer too.
Yeah. Thank you for that. We're going to actually, speaking of answers, question and answers, we'll open up for Q&A in just a little bit. I have a final questions for you guys, but before that, and also thank you, Brother Robert, for the $60 burner phone in the chat. Before we go to you guys, Imam Khalid, one last question for you. And I don't know how you felt about the no da'wah at the border statement, but I will ask you, this whole situation that we're in right now, crackdowns and, limited speech and, just everything going on around the world. Is there any specific moment in the CR that you feel like we should be reflecting on in these moments and can give us lessons to carry on? You're muted right now, Imam Khalid.
Thank you. Yeah, the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is just chock with stories about perseverance during persecution, periods of persecution. And if we look at the boycott of not just the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the Muslims, about the 6th or 7th year of the revelation of the Quran, we find that it was not just those who were Muslims, but also members of the Bani Hashim, just the clan, the tribe. Everyone who was blood related to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was put out along with the Prophet, put outside of Mecca, out in the desert heat. And it was forbidden for anyone to bring food or water to try to help shelter them. And so this was a very, very difficult time, not just for those who were the leading Muslims, but for just the common person. It didn't matter whether or not they had responsibility or they were looked at as leaders, they were just Muslim. And as a result of this was a very horrendous period for the Muslims and for the believers. But through just perseverance and through faith, there was no roadmap. There was no one to tell them or show them, to demonstrate to them how to navigate their current situation. And so we have to turn to those examples from the seerah of the Prophet, peace be upon him, but also not in just how to withstand punishment and pain, but also how to be proactive in trying to speak out against injustices, to organize against injustices, because that's the only way in human history, for the most part, unless it's purely divine miracles, inspired miracles, is through organized efforts that any kind of change is going to come. And when we look again at the history of this country, the period that we're going through right now, it too will pass, just as other periods of just extreme and gross examples of suppression of the citizens of this country based on race or based on political ideology or whatever. The McCarthy era, for an example, during the 1950s, if we look at that for an example, and we see how so many careers were ruined in every aspect of American society, because this cocaine-using Senator Joe McCarthy was pointing his finger and had this communist hysteria. And so it didn't matter whether or not someone was guilty of associating with the Communist Party or anything like that. So this country has gone through periods that have been horrible and horrendous for the victims of this kind of directed and organized almost terror against specific populations. But through perseverance, like that of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and those who were with him, we understand that what is going on at any given time is not something that will continue forever. We just have to be patient. We just have to recognize that the Surah is full of these kinds of examples that should inspire us, no matter what is happening to us as individuals or as a group. It should inspire us to just be patient and to continue to move forward. And I just want to say this quickly. I don't understand where all of this Android denigration and hate is coming from. I mean, us Android users, I mean, it's offensive to talk about Android the way that you all are talking about Androids.
I agree. There's too much Android hate going on here. But I think one of the points that you made is for sure in terms of emotional and spiritual reminders, the Quran and Sirah are always there. But even more so than that, Quran and Sirah are not just spiritual reminders. It's political as a whole. It's a complete way of life. And so reflecting and studying that is a great way to see where our communities are at right now, and where we should be going, and how we should be, what part of the Sirah we're missing in our lives. Let's start for that. With that, one last question, and everyone will be taking Q&A after this last question. So you guys can throw that in the chat. But one last question for our attorneys and Brother Robert is specifically when it comes to the non-citizens, so the green card holders and the F1 visa holders, when it comes to these lists of questions, and beyond that as well. But like, for example, the questions about your part, or they have questions for you, they're detaining you. Is there anything different that this group of people have to deal with or answer in a different way, whether it's about traveling or it's about protesting or anything else that you may have missed for this?
Suppose you want to take this one?
Yes, thank you. So, U.S. citizens have the most rights. Lawful permanent residents have a little bit less rights, and then non-immigrants, which includes H-1B, F1, B1, B2 visitors, business visitors, and then those who come on ESTA waiver programs. The questions can be a little bit more detailed in terms of not just identifying your status, where you've come from, and where you went. The question, when it comes to the religious questions, as Brother Gadir said, use your stance to say, I don't feel comfortable answering those questions. If they want to ask details more about where you visited, what was the purpose of your trip, they can get a bit more evasive with those questionings. Here, where I believe that it's more important than ever to be vigilant about your social media, your electronic devices, and your social media posts, because they do have access to your social media. Alone in the last 2 weeks, I've had one client who was of Afghan national, but a UK citizen, was visiting someone, and they asked him to open his phone. He opened his phone, and in the phone there was text messages from the person who was in California and said, you can come stay at my house and watch my cat, feed it. I'm going to be gone for a couple of days. When I come back from Florida, I'll meet up and we'll go do something. Well, the CBP office determined that that was unauthorized work, meaning he was working to get free rent, and he was sent back to the UK. Another incident was they were looking through the phone and there were conversations. Again, a national citizen of the UK who happened to be Afghan in LA area. They saw that he had some text messages from his own brother saying, I'm looking for prospects of job. I think he was looking for H-1B. He was a citizen of UK, and he was detained for 4 days and he was sent back. So the line of questioning is a bit more detailed, and you have less rights than you would as a citizen. But to be proactive, first and foremost, if you're a lawful permanent resident, if you have any sort of contact with law enforcement in the United States, whether it's a DUI, simple theft, domestic violence, any type of a criminal record. And it's always been the case. When you leave the US, certain crimes can make you inadmissible coming back in, which can subject you to mandatory detention, which means they have to let you in and you have to be able to fight your case. The CBP officers are very, very aggressive now, more than ever before. So if you've overstayed your trip more than 6 months or more than a year, technically, legally, if you stay over more than 1 year, they've considered you abandoning your immigration status. They will coerce you into signing a, self-deport, which is a form I-407. Under no circumstances should you sign any paperwork, no matter what, because once you sign that form, I-407, you've just self-deported yourself, and it's going to be very hard to bring you in. If you have any type of a criminal record before you're traveling outside of the US, consult with an immigration attorney about the risks. If you've overstayed a year, say you were sick or something happened unexpected, they cannot deport you. They have to let you in, put you in, they'll take your green card, they'll put you in deportation proceedings, and eventually you have to go in front of an immigration judge and litigate your case. So it's very important that you do not sign anything. If you're an F1 student, or H-1B, and you've had any sort of encounter with law enforcement, again, speak with an immigration attorney. And if you've had no encounters with an immigration attorney and you wanted international travel, it's very important that you have a copy of your immigration documents along with your passport with a family member, so that if you're telling them you're coming in at 1 p.m. and it's 5 p.m., they haven't heard from you, they can contact an immigration attorney and try to see what could be done. So the line of questionings can be more detailed, but again, if it comes to religious questioning, you can use your rights to assert that you don't feel comfortable answering those questions. And in terms of documentations coming back in, you want to be sure that you have everything checked before you do travel. Now, we'll get into this later, maybe, inshallah, about the travel ban. There are 43 countries on the proposed travel ban that was supposed to take effect mid-May. It has not. There's the red, orange, yellow. Many of my clients want to travel as U.S. citizens from those countries. You should be fine to travel. Electronic devices, as Brother Gadir covered, is separate. If you are a green card holder, please postpone your travels until, even if you have no record, but you are one of those, especially the red tier and the orange tier, avoid your travel, because we don't know what the travel ban is going to entail. If you are out and you're coming back in, there may be a lot of chaos like we saw in 2017. If you are out, consider coming back in before any travel takes effect, because we don't know how it's going to impact individuals. So many people are asking, can I travel with a travel document because I'm applying for asylum? Absolutely. My humble legal advice from expertise is do not travel until we see the travel ban coming into effect. So I'll stop here and let Brother Gadir and Brother Robert pitch in anything I might have missed.
And just in a minute, we'll switch over to Q&A as well. So any last thoughts before we go into that, you guys can go ahead.
Nothing else.
I did post a document in the chat. It's called CAIR's Understanding and Protecting Your Rights in Travel and Free Speech Rights under the Trump administration. It was updated in March. It was rolled out because of the potential threat of the Muslim ban. Again, Trump issued an executive order. The reports came in. They have a potential list of dozens of countries, first tier, second tier, third tier. We're really advising people, don't travel unless it's absolutely necessary, especially if you're a non-citizen. If you're a non-citizen, read the document. It applies to you.
Okay. With that, we're going to jump into Q&A. There's a couple of questions. So, and we're short on time as well, so we're just going to keep them to 30 seconds, 1 minute answers if possible. The first question is going back to, being detained while traveling. Someone asked, what does it impact when we defer to answers or questions, even if they're religious questions? Because some people say that if you argue with them, it's going to lead to unnecessary detention.
Yeah, I think that it's, I can see that, where that's like a reasonable thing to expect. But in my experience, if you give them an inch, they're going to take more. And so it's better and safer to, if they start with an inappropriate question, to call them out on the first inappropriate question, and not in like a rude, aggressive way, but in a calm, collected, but firm way. I'm sorry, I don't think that's an appropriate question to ask about my religious beliefs and practices. What's your name? What's your? I'd like to speak with the supervisor. And I think that it's a risk either way. Like, if you engage in the back and forth, how often do you pray at the mosque? Let's say it's a lot. What are they going to say? What do you think their reaction is going to be? Oh my God, I got a real one here. Got a real one. Let me figure out all the things I can extract from this person. And so I think the better. I think there's right. We can't control what they're going to do. It's not a situation where I can say, if you do this, then they'll do that. I think all things considered, you're better off drawing the line at, I'm not going to answer these religious political questions. And I think that ends up being better. Obviously, certainly, if you don't answer a question that they asked you, it's possible they'll say, you got to answer my questions. You got to answer my questions. And you're not going to leave until you finish answering my questions. That could happen. And you just have to be confident that both me and myself, we're telling you the truth, that you're better off not answering questions like that than you are answering them.
Got it. Exactly. Our next question was.
I would just add, though, since high school, my whole goal was to answer the least amount of questions to police officers. It's always done me well. And you have to remember that when they're asking you questions, if it hasn't already been said by Gadir or Spojmi, this is a form of intelligence collecting. Everything goes in a database. They report their conversations. And if they've had 10 conversations over the years, they have a little dossier on your interactions. And so it's worth just remembering that these screenings are part of an intelligence gathering operation, and you don't have to take part in it to such a great degree.
Got it. Okay. Someone asked if these issues are also present when traveling domestically within the states.
Not as much. Because you're not dealing with CBP, you're dealing with TSA. You could technically be flagged for secondary screening, but it's not the same way as CBP. Gadir, Spojmi?
If somebody's on a status and they're traveling using their passport, TSA can potentially connect with CBP. And if you don't have legal status, say you overstayed your visitor visa or whatever the status may be, the Real ID has been implemented, and only an individual with legal status can get Real ID. So for those who are eligible for Real ID, please do get it, or you have to use your passport. But if you've overstayed your legal status here and you're out of status and you're using your home nationality unexpired passport to travel domestically, there could potentially be risks.
Got it. Next question, someone asked, and just to reiterate to the previous question, they said, if they ask you to log into your email or iCloud or social medias, they won't let you in. And your guys' response is, no matter what, don't log into your accounts.
I think you should just, if you have to wait 8 to 12 hours at the border, it's better than them having access to all your media and all your social media where it is uncontrollable, where you can't control who emails you, where you can't control what ends up on your feed, yet now you're going to be held accountable. Especially if you are the type that is willing to go into protests and stood on the street for 6 hours, you can stand at the border for 6 hours. That's just one more smaller sacrifice. And honestly, what a better way to stick it to them.
Yeah. And would this be the same answer for a non-citizen that's traveling in?
Non-citizens have to comply in a different way. Gadir,
Spojmi, you want to talk to the non-citizen question? Yeah.
So as a non-citizen, again, the precautions you want to take is if you're able to avoid taking electronics, deleting your apps and all of that. So if you were to open your phone, you're opening up to a lot of questioning. It's really hard because it all depends on how aggressive the officer wants to be and how much you are willing to withstand that. You don't, even as a green card holder, you don't have to give them your password, or even as a visitor, if you are, they're probably going to revoke your visa and send you back. But in circumstances where you do give it, the sample that I gave you where they changed nothing into something and sent him back because he was going to watch the cat for his friend for a couple of days, and they said, oh, you're working, so you're getting paid. So they're going to charge something. You don't have to give them your password. If you choose not to give them your password, just prepared for the long haul of them either confiscating your phone or just keeping you for a long time. But before you're making your plans, make sure that you have, your information shared with the family so they can reach out to an attorney who may not be able to do much. So I guess my answer would be how much you want to withstand that, and if you want to give it, and they're just going to make it more harder for green card holders in terms of opening. But you don't have to, by law or mandate, open your phone and give them your password.
Got it. Okay. Last couple questions. Someone asked about traveling to Canada by road. But Brother Robert, you said that it's going to be a similar situation, and they may or may not ask you those same questions or ask for your device, correct?
At the border, at the land border, they're asking people's devices, certainly. So the device issue is border specific. So the government, the federal government, claims extra authority to do whatever they want to do at the borders, and that authority is border specific. And so it's at land borders where they can set aside people and try to take their electronic devices, and ports of entry, like airports where you're coming from overseas. And so at either of those places, you might have basically the same kinds of electronic device issues.
Okay.
And we've actually had some really bad cases at the land border too, especially if someone's on one of the selectee lists.
Got it. There was a couple of questions about borders, so I guess the same precautions would be applied for the ground borders as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's been an echo. Overall, I mean, I know it sounds like our rights are being taken and we're living in a hard time. And I know Imam Khalid was talking about how we need to stand up. But I think we also, and I wholeheartedly agree, but I think we also, in this time, as an individual, you have to reflect on, is this trip worth it for me? I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm a natural U.S. citizen. I'm a CAIR National Board member. I do a lot of civil rights work. I'm an immigration attorney. There was an executive order to go after immigration attorney. If you ask me, Sposhmi, are you traveling this summer with your family? My answer is I'm not traveling. Even if I take a burner phone, even if I take anything, I've already told my family, and they say I always ruin everything. I said, sorry, comes with the package. So I'm choosing not to travel just because I don't know what it's going to entail. We know another brother who was a U.S. citizen, an immigration attorney, was detained for 2-3 hours. I am not afraid. I can defend myself, and I've done it before where I was held. But I just don't want to put my family through that and that distress. So I just said, if you guys would love to go to Istanbul, Turkey this summer, please go without me. Enjoy the trip, and you'll be fine, and you guys will all come back. So those are the conversations we need to have with our family and say, or with yourself, to say, is it worth for me to go over to Canada because I'm anticipating these issues and I'm feeling very insecure and I don't want that burden. So is it worth it for me? So, I mean, not everyone agrees with that advice, but that is what I tell myself and my clients.
Got it. Someone was also asking about a document with all these questions, and CAIR actually has an amazing one called Understanding and Protecting Your Travel and Free Speech Rights Under the Trump Administration. So I would advise everyone to please take a look at that. To end off, if anyone has more questions, how can they reach out to CAIR or to any other attorneys? You're on mute, Brother Robert.
It started my life. It's not letting me drop my email into the chat, but you can just email us at info@CAIR.com. And if you have a civil rights complaint, you can also go on our website at CAIR.com. We have a report section. Gadir, are there any civil rights emails you want to give out?
Yeah, you can. We have a form on our website. You can also email civilrights@CAIR.com. It's civilrights@CAIR.com, and that goes to the legal team. And if you need help with something, just reach out, and we'll be happy to see if we can.
Brother, I put my email in our private chat because I can't put it there. I am in California. Immigration is federal. So if anybody wants a consult, they can just email me. I'm happy to do pro bono any questions, quick questions that somebody may have. but CAIR, CAIR has wonderful resources and stuff like that. If someone has something specific, I do check my own emails. So if you want to share my email, they can shoot it to me, and I'm happy to respond.
Got it. With that, Jazakallah khair, all four of you guys, for answering a lot of these questions. I know there's a lot more, and I'm sure you'll get a lot more emails. But with that, we will have our ICNA president, Brother Saad Ghazmin, come on for his final remarks and then end us off.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Thank you very much for, mashallah, what a wonderful group. Such an informative session. So I want to thank brothers and sisters at CAIR who come prepared, mashallah, always, and have given the best of the professional information they have, mashallah. I want to thank MSA as well, our sisters, ICNA sisters, mashallah, they took the lead. And the whole program, actually, this coordination collaboration is started with a small meeting, mashallah. We decided that we need to have a synergy in between ICNA and others as well, so including CAIR and MSA and YM, inshallah, so that we can have this program. And of course, getting on the website and getting all the information, it's a tedious work. So just coming, face to face and asking questions and getting firsthand information that in situations that you face in real life. So I again thank everybody, mashallah, for your contribution. As Imam Khalid said earlier, that we have to strike a real balance in between situations that come along when we have to stand up what's right. Postponing your foreign trip may be the right thing because you are doing it for yourself. But when it comes to standing up for the First Amendment right, standing up for what is right, that is not for yourself. And that is the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he always stood up not for himself, but for the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the rights for others. So inshallah, there will be more programs. This is the first program of its series. Inshallah, where ICNA sisters will continue to take lead, and some more programs, inshallah, will come along that will address other issues and other challenges that, subhanallah, as we get to see this current administration unfolding its vices and its characters, we get to see more. So, alhamdulillah, we have survived before, and inshallah, we will survive, not only survive, but will thrive again, inshallah, with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jazakallah khair, everybody. Inshallah, we will close here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Wal 'asr. Innal insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus salihat. Wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.